My grandmother was born under the Austrian-Hungarian Empire at the end of the 19th century. And my parents were born in Budapest, as was I, under the communist regime. And my children were born in Italy under a regime that we don't know what to call as it goes from crisis to crisis, searching ways to give happiness and opportunity and well-being to its citizens. What I see is a fractal growth of various ways of searching for solutions in our quest. An evolutionary fitness model evolving and changing, where societies and our components, parts of how we live, are really striving and attempting to achieve opportunity for everybody involved. We have to find societies that are resilient because technology changes so rapidly and our interconnected world is so chaotic that it is impossible to isolate from the influences a given part. What changes to the left influences the right. What changes on the north influences the south. And what is very important is we get out from the old type of thinking that cages so many people in, and we search for the new solutions with creativity, with tolerance, with fantasy. The socioeconomic evolution that I want to talk to you about really started 10,000 years ago or maybe more. And it has been since that time exponential. The most recognizable example of exponential change is what happens to computers. Started with mainframes, then mini computers, personal computers. What today we even stopped calling computers anymore, we call them our mobile phones, carrying it around in our pockets, hasn't stopped evolving. And they are becoming now sensors embedded everywhere, the Internet of Things being designed around us. But it was the same that was happening thousands of years ago too. And as the Egyptian slaves were trying to understand, and they very clearly realized that their situation was unjust, what could not necessarily happen is to do something about it. Because socio-economic change is only sustainable when there is a strong and solid technological basis to make it happen. The achievements of our society today, which is global, interconnected, exciting, and gives opportunity to billions of people, and hopefully it is going to give more opportunity to billions more, is held up by an enormously rapid change that is clearly not sustainable. We have to understand what is the difference between the dinosaurs and ourselves. Is it really just that they didn't have telescopes? Will we use both concretely our telescopes that we have at our disposal to search for the asteroid that could hit Earth and wipe us out totally, just as it happened with the dinosaurs? Will we keep using the tools of science to take it more metaphorically, to keep searching for solutions to the problems we have? 500 years ago, more or less, with the Peace of Westphalia, the nation-state was born. And it has become so successful organizing the activities of people all around the world, centrally and hierarchically, that today on the planet, there is no single place, except Antarctica, but not many people want to go live there, where you do not belong to a nation-state. It is the case, however, that today, rather than this centralized and hierarchical organization, we have the possibility of finding an alternative that is based on decentralization and the power of networks. And that is the fundamental thesis of the network society. The social economic change only becomes sustainable if there is a solid technological basis behind it. That today we are seeing technologies developing and emerging that are superior in distributing and decentralizing the formerly centralized and hierarchical functions of the nation state. And as a consequence, this traditional organization will be fundamentally disrupted to be replaced little by little by a new one that we call the network society. Let me give you some very concrete examples of what I'm talking about. In energy, for example, rather than centralized carbon or petrol-based power stations, everybody has the opportunity of putting up solar panels on the roofs of the houses. In manufacturing, we have 3D printing that brings creativity and opportunity to produce useful objects on the desktops of everybody. Food production with hydroponics, vertical gardens, urban gardening, even 3D printing of meat is promising a fundamental rethinking of what agriculture is about. And through the sensors that are becoming richer and richer in our mobile phones, everybody is going to be empowered to monitor his or her parameters of health rather than intervening when it's too late, when the illness already set in. Learning and teaching experientially, online, driven by your passion, rather than somebody at the university telling you that the next 4 years you are going to study X after Y after Z in an order that has been established by a third party without your control. In finance, where cryptocurrencies are enabling through a fundamental new invention, rethinking what is the nature of money, our banking, and the financial world in general. Finance is also a technology that is rapidly evolving. Trust platforms are enabling anybody in this room to trust anybody else because the reputation is secured better than not intervening after the fact by any police force could ever achieve. And of course, policymaking and governance is in a very deep need of being reformed and reevaluated. How representative democracy can or cannot cope with the needs of discussing, implementing, adapting, and adopting new regulations as these technologies hit society very deeply and broadly. Now, I believe that even if any of these single examples could be labeled a fad, you recognize that putting them together, each pointing to decentralization and distribution of these fundamental functions, the sum of all of it together is evidently unstoppable. And what we need is to find the ways that we can reach from the current situation, an unsustainable situation, to the new organization in a path, step after step, with very specific ways that we can further rather than hinder the adoption of these news. Living in a network society, in my view, is going to give an opportunity to enterprises and corporations, organizations in general, to work much more efficiently and effectively than today. The empowerment that people will feel, the emancipation of participating in a permissionless innovation where groups of people that potentially are going to be geographically distributed but are going to be joined together by their common interests and passion are going to be able to experiment and learn from those experiments and teach and learn more in virtuous cycles of reinforcement. If you think about it, our society has come a long way. These examples from the United States show a sequence of prohibitions ending, guided by tolerance as a principle for a diverse society that can embrace a wide variety of behaviors that do not cluster in a single group, but distributed around a wider circle of possibilities and opportunities. So think about it as an exercise at home. What are the next prohibitions that are going to be ending? And do not pick the easy ones that you like. try hard and find those that you hate and realize that society might want to choose those too, and you will need to adapt and adopt to the society when that happens and peacefully live among the people who adopt those behaviors with dignity and with the opportunity to create a community that is inclusive more than we see today. And the possibility is even there to overcome a fundamental and, in my opinion, unnecessary dichotomy that opposes for-profit enterprises that are unsustainable from an ecological point of view and non-profit organizations that are traditionally unsustainable or have a hard time surviving from a financial point of view, leading to a new way that is better than today. And of course, it is already happening, and it is already stimulating the immune system of the existing incumbents, the bureaucracies that are resisting and reacting. But what we have to tell them is that this panic is useless. If it is true that this change is unstoppable, accepting it and then going with the flow, realizing that societies can try to hinder and slow down the change, but they cannot stop it, is what matters. And each of you can and should influence your friends, your neighbors, your representatives to realize that as societies evolve, it is in the power of people to create new forms of organization that can be better than before. Adopting the proactionary principle that integrates in the future the total benefit that adopting a new technology can create is a better way to go about it than the media hype cycle maximizing the visibility of negative side effects. Technology is not a zero-sum game. In the past 10,000 years, we have come a long way. Our children will live on Mars. Unless humanity becomes a multiplanetary species, it is guaranteed that we will become extinct. By the time I will have moved further. And the question is about you. Are you going to take up this challenge? Are you and will you participate in the network society? Thank you.